Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keep Austin Safe, the podcast where we explore the issues that shape our city. I'm your host, Jose Mendez.
And I'm Clara Ash. Today we are joined by the Chief of Police, Lisa Davis, Chief of the Austin Police Department. Today we're going to talk about her 100-day plan, some of the feedback that we've had from the community, and where APD is going to go from here. So, Chief, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Clara. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. So aside from police work, tell us about your time here in Austin. Have you been able to have any extracurricular activities, any hobbies? Has any food grown on you? And more importantly, come Saturday morning, are you rooting for a specific football team?
Oh, wow. Well, listen, I really appreciate the fact that you think I have time to go explore the city. And I can't wait for that day to come. This first year and any chief's job, I think, is very challenging and you don't have a lot of time to yourself. But I love the city. I love exploring. Food, absolutely. I don't know how I lived my life without, breakfast tacos before now. And pecan coffee, all of that's fantastic. And the barbecue. There is so much to do here that I don't think you could ever get it done in a lifetime. I mean, it's just there's so much, and I truly appreciate it. As far as football, I love going to the UT games. I've been to several of them since I've been here, and man, it really it grows on you, that's for sure. And again, Ohio State is a team because, like I've said before, I am paying tuition. My son went to college there, is in law school, and so I just say that. But as far as a team, it's so easy to get behind the Longhorns, for sure.
Nice.
Convert you to that bird orange. Yes, absolutely. We like it.
Absolutely.
Like it.
Yes.
All right, Chief, let's get into the bigger picture here. This 100-day plan. Your first step really was listening. You took over or went to 240 meetings, some town halls, some briefings. You had such a long process of going through this 100-day plan. Why was that your first step?
Well, I think anytime you come into a leadership position, one is what is a priority for the people, right? And you have different segments. We have the community, what their perspective is, the officers themselves, and then the officers' families. I don't think, that I know of a survey that has been done where it's actually asking the family members of the officers here how they're feeling and internally. So I think it's just important to listen to what they have to say, and then you start building based off the feedback there and what you're getting. You build what your response is going to be as you move forward as an organization.
Now, what were some of the main takeaways from those listening sessions?
Well, I think for the community, it's about, what was really interesting is between all segments, it was about this desire for the police chief to really mend the relationship with the DA. And that was quite clear. And I think I've done a good job with that, meeting with him regularly, having discussions about how we move forward, all of those things. So just that alone was kind of telling. But then for the community, it's about crime, their perception of crime. And I've said this, and it is true. Austin is a safe city. When you're looking at overall numbers and you're looking at the amount of crime, for a city our size, our crime is although no crime is good, right? But to say that, but crime numbers in Austin are good. They look good. And they're certainly something that we can address. But that's important to the people that live here. And sometimes it's that perception of if they're not feeling, quality of life issues, those type of things, that needs to be addressed. And it was quite telling in just the community surveys from that perspective. The officers, you're talking about, morale, you're talking about recruitment and retention and what's it like, within the department. Backfill was a big deal for officers. We heard about that. So just really listening to what concerns they had. And then for the family members, these are their loved ones. There's a lot of anxiety that goes along with just watching your loved one that's in policing walk out the door. And not just police officers, but even our professional staff members, their families and what it means to be, in this profession and in working for the police department itself.
Yeah, so a lot of important topics, obviously.
Yes.
Now, when we talk, or some of the feedback that you received was, hey, we want a faster police response time. We want more visible patrols. Essentially, what that comes down to is staffing, right? So we need more people that are wanting to do this job. But how do we bring in people that may have the feeling that the community here in Austin doesn't support them, one, and two, there's just a complete disconnect with law enforcement and our district attorney's office. Do you think those things alone would prevent us from ever becoming fully staffed over time?
No, I don't. And let me ask you this. So, every year Gallup poll puts out how people are feeling about professions. And what do you think the number is of people, the public that support the police? What do you think percent-wise that is? What would you say?
I would say 80, 90%.
No, it's 51%.
Complete road.
It's 51%, but that is number 3. It's number 3. The percents aren't high for any when you think of public trust. So the public does support the police. And then you go from 51% to Congress, I believe, is at 9%. And that's that public trust and what it looks like. So the majority of people in the city do support our police officers, and they need to understand that, and they need to know that. But it is hard when you hear a few voices and you hear, the disgruntled few that have loud voices, and then the people that are going about their everyday lives, living their lives here, we're not hearing from, and so that makes it hard for the officers. But I don't feel when you're talking to young people, you're looking at the DA and you're looking at things that happened here from 2020 and maybe even before that. I think we're moving on from that. I really do. And when you look at when I think of policing here in Austin, what I want to say to people is, we have a young group of people that want to feel like they're doing something with their life, right? And so my thing is, you want to make a difference, come to Austin PD and be that difference. That's it. Put your money where your mouth is, right? And come and explore what it would mean to be an Austin police officer.
Ben?
I want to go back. You talked about some of those voices, some of the smaller voices out of the large crowd that you're talking about. From these survey responses, you had nearly 1,000 of them from people all over Austin. Of those small voices, some of the top concerns were homelessness, police presence, traffic safety, communication. Those were kind of the top things that we were seeing people were wanting addressed. So we know that those are the issue, but what's the next step? How do we go about addressing those?
Yeah, so those are concerns to me when we see things. But one is getting people back on patrol, and we've done that with our staffing. Those are very hard decisions and choices to make, but it has to be done. We have to have more officers on the street to take calls, to be responsive, because again, those quality of life issues matter to people. We have to get to the calls, not just the high priority calls. Every call needs to be important. Every call needs to have a sense of some priority, whether it's we can get to you in an hour or two. This is a low priority. There's no one on scene. But all of it is important, all of it. And so we have to respond like it is.
Now, the topics that did come up, did they surprise you? And which of those topics do you consider most pressing?
No, I don't think anything surprised me. Again, it's all about the perception, and you could see it across the different communities, what's important to different communities. To the officers, I think, again, the morale and the ending backfill, again, these are never easy. I think we've been able to do that. We have ended backfill come August, but at a price, right? I mean, that's it. It comes with a price. And when you're looking at how do you do that, how do you move forward and make these tough calls, it had to be done. It wasn't easy, but that's what I was brought in here to do, is to make some changes, and that's it. So I wasn't surprised by really any. I mean, from a family perspective, my husband was a police officer in Cincinnati, and the same. Being an officer myself, to watch your person, go out the door to work a third shift. Those are hard things. Certainly knowing policing and how tough it can be and how challenging, based off the neighborhood you work in or every call that you respond to. So I love just hearing from everybody. I think, again, the support for the police were there, but everybody had valid concerns. We need to get to runs faster. We need to be more supportive of our officers and of our officers' families. And so it just really gave us an opportunity to kind of look and see, a wide selection of how people are feeling and what's on their mind.
Yeah. Now, in that survey, you noted that the feelings of safety, the score was a 6 out of 10. What does that number say to you, and what do you think the top factor is in order to improve those numbers?
Well, one, I don't think that was too bad, quite honestly. If you look around and at other places, I think it means that Austin overall is safe, but there are certainly areas where people, again, it's perception. What are they feeling? We know that we have about 4 hotspots here in the city where crime is an issue and crime needs to be addressed. More, using that evidence-based practices and principles. But it is, anytime someone doesn't feel safe walking to a store or walking out of their house, that's a problem. And that is certainly something that we have to address.
Certainly. So when going back to the 6 out of 10, when we're looking at the average of feelings of safety being a 6 out of 10, in grade school terms, that's what, a D, right? So not too good, right? But we're obviously dealing with a staffing shortage for quite some time. And then we're dealing with just a continuing increase in population here in Austin. I mean, right about now, I think we're just about 1 million people here specifically in Austin. And as it continues to grow, what do you think, how do we reach, let's say, a 9 or 10, right? Mm-hmm. What does that look like in the eyes of our community members when you have all this other stuff going around, people saying Austin's becoming unsafe, there's a Lady Bird Lake killer, which we won't discuss that topic at this time. But overall, it's just the consensus right now among some people it's just unsafe to just walk and be about in Austin. But again, how do we reach a 9 or 10? Or is that something that we're trying to achieve that's completely unachievable?
I don't know that's unachievable, but I think any large city, and I'm sorry to tell the Austinites here, that this is a large city. This is not a small town. Anytime you're in a large city, you're going to have those feelings of fear. But how we get better is we address crimes and we communicate more about them, right? Again, we have 4 hotspots where we know the majority of our crime occurs. It is very, very few people in our city, probably 0.001% that commit our most violent crimes. And so when we can focus on who they are and where they're committing these crimes, we'll see a lot of wins that way. But it's really about officers being more engaged. We unfortunately had the DRs were cut significantly, I think, the last time that we did that. So I'd really love an opportunity to bring more DRs back eventually. But those are the people out in those communities having conversations, addressing issues. When someone has an issue about fear of crime in their neighborhood, there should be someone they could call and talk to about that and can actually talk real numbers to them. I feel like this is unsafe. Well, no, it's really not. We haven't had any, reported crimes there. There's, how can we help? And so you're doing those, we know officers go out and they do the environmental surveys. Do we just need more lighting? Do we need, any of this? So I think it's just truly getting more communication about what is occurring in these neighborhoods. If we could break it down by neighborhoods. I know when you look at our data on the city's website, I think we look at overall data. Can we break it down by neighborhood to kind of give people a better idea of what's occurring? In this neighborhood specifically, it's more auto thefts. We're seeing a rise in auto because we are down significantly in crime in this city. We're down 6% in homicides, down over 20% in shootings. So we're down significantly, and we need to be able to talk about that and what that means for the city as a whole.
You're talking about these different neighborhoods, and honestly, I think you could go across every single person in Austin, you talk to them, everyone's going to have a different picture of what's most important, what's the most pressing. Everyone's going to have a different idea and a different opinion. So from your perspective, how do you balance all these different opinions, and how do you decide what's most pressing, what needs to be addressed first?
Yeah, and so I think that's why it matters who you have as a sector commander. And those are such big jobs. And I've said this before, the most important roles in a city are the sergeant, frontline supervisors, and the commanders, because they can really affect change. They can affect a lot of things that are going on in that sector. So if you have a commander who is engaged and has the autonomy to make decisions about what's occurring in that sector, you get some huge wins that way. And so when they're holding meetings and they're listening to the people and the voices within their community and listening to the officers that are assigned there, and they're seeing where the issues are, where the quality of life issues are, because it's not always about violent crime. It just isn't. But those things, those quality of life things, are just as important to the people that are dealing with them. And so those have to be addressed. And when you have good commanders who are in sync with what's going on in their neighborhood and they're working toward addressing those things, that's when you get that community buy-in as well.
And you touched on this a bit earlier. I want to go a little bit deeper with it, just from an internal perspective and from some of the personnel surveys that you got back. We talked a little bit about some of the staffing shortages and backfill and burnout. A lot of feedback you're getting just from APD officers as a whole. So what changes are being made? I know that we've recently made especially some staffing changes as well. What are you doing to support the officers who are experiencing some of these issues?
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. As you come in, and one of the things you're tasked with here is, I thought I was coming into Austin to address crime and violence, and that's what I'm good at. I've done that in Cincinnati. But as you start peeling back things and you're recognizing things that need to be addressed, the way we look and the way we use data, our reporting system, the fact that our CAD doesn't talk to our RMS, and all of these things that have to be addressed before we can start truly looking at our overall crime picture. These are things I was not expecting. But the officers, it is hard to raise morale when you're now taking people out of jobs that they've loved, jobs that they're really good at, that they're passionate about. Again, those are not hard things to do. But I do feel that overall it will be better for the department and the city as a whole with these moves being made. But it is hard because it does absolutely affects morale. And not just the people that are being moved out of these assignments. It affects the person that's maybe been in a sector and been on the shift for several years who may now lose that shift because other people with higher seniority are coming in. So I am not naive enough to think that this is not a huge deal and that it affects people greatly, affects their lives, affects everything. But at the end of all of this, I do feel that it's the best move for the department and for the city.
And something I loved that you did, and you mentioned it earlier, but you actually took feedback also from the spouses, from the families of our officers. These are kind of our APD extended family that people don't always think about or remember. What was your biggest takeaway from what you heard from them and how you can support them?
Yeah, I think it was, again, the DA, that there's some real fear. I mean, the fear of your husband or your wife going out and just doing their job and maybe getting arrested for it. I mean, those are real fears. Again, I think I've made some real headway with the DA's office and the way we share information and what we do. But again, I just think the overall anxiety, the shift, these changes on the shifts are going to be a big deal for family because it could be affecting childcare and kind of upheaval in their household. So I understand that as well. But the families, again, it is about what is making them safer, and having more bodies on patrol is making everybody safer. I mean, that's just the reality.
Well, we touched on trust, right? So what about trust between officers and leadership? You know, over the past several years, there seems to be kind of a disconnect with officers and leadership. What would you say to that?
I think that's true. And it was brought to my attention, too, just the way that the staffing thing was communicated, was not done appropriately. And so we all have to learn what that looks like. It's about getting out, being visible, everybody sharing that same voice on what it is and we're looking at. If I could have done it over as far as the staffing, I would have brought to the Chiefs Advisory Committee. That is a fantastic group of a cross-section of, professional staff and sworn members, and really talk to them about what this was going to look like. You have a lot of voices and you have a lot of people, smart people that have some great ideas. And so maybe some more input on that end for sure. But that trust is, it's fragile and it takes time to build it. But you also have to admit when you've made mistakes. But change is hard. And people, when I got here, backfill and getting rid of backfill was a priority for a lot of people. And not only that, but recognizing the amount of officers we have on patrol and that we need more in a city this size to have the number of officers we have on patrol. We just can't sustain that. It's not good for the community. It's not good for the officers as well. So how do we provide services and keep in line with the services we've been providing and do it safer with more officers on the street?
Now, can you touch real quick on the restructuring of our executive leadership here? That took place several months ago, but why was that important to you?
Yeah, I think it's important too and I'm glad that I was able to, as a chief, that you can, I was able to do that. You have to get people around you that, I don't want to say think the same because I don't want all that. I don't want I want people with differing opinions, but absolutely people that are going to get on board when it is time to make those changes. And they may not agree with you, and you can have debate and you can talk about why this isn't good, but everybody needs to be moving in the same direction of crime prevention, community policing, recruitment, retention, and morale. Everyone needs to have those three priorities as theirs because we move together as a staff. And when you start having people outside of that, when you start getting leaks and you start having people talk and it's no longer about what's best for the department, it's about them individually, that's a problem. And so every police chief should have an opportunity to bring in and at least get around them a team that they feel is going to work toward what their goals are.
Now, staying on change, right? Because cops want change, but when change happens, then they hate it, right?
Yep.
What would you say to those who think you might be moving too quickly or are making too many changes too soon?
I would say that there's part of me that doesn't feel like I've moved quick enough. I feel like I should have moved quicker to get staffing out of patrol, but that takes time. And what I've found out is that when you go on a podcast, when you're in front of the APA or you're talking to police and you say you want to do something, they expect it now. They don't expect it to take the months that it does. It takes time to look at where will people come from? How will we move forward? What are the best practices for police departments our size to do this? And so it's one thing to say, yes, I want to do that. We need more staff out. Yes, I want to do that. But in their minds, in the police mind, it's let's do it right now, with a quickness instead of truly being thoughtful about it and trying to take your time to see exactly what it all looks like.
I want to look ahead to what you've done and where that is going from here, because you've already launched so many different initiatives. You've already made such strides in this plan and moving forward. So what about that excites you the most? Is there something that you did that you're like, this is going to be really awesome, or what makes you excited?
Well, I'm excited. Every one of the assistant chiefs, including our chief of staff, has been given a list of things, their priorities they're going to be working on. So, Robin is tasked with the academy and recruiting. And at this point, you saw the staffing. That's going to be a whole different look there. And that's a real big opportunity for her to make some changes. But I want to plan on how we're going to implement in-service training, 2 days a week. What does recruiting look like as we move forward? All of those things. At internal, looking at the way with the process, we need to get it out quicker as far as discipline. There's no reason that we're waiting 180 days for the majority of these real low-level things that could probably be handled inside of a sector. So, revamping that, the way we look at our sexual assaults and our domestic violence, having true problem solving behind that. And so I'm excited about where each of the assistant chiefs and what they're doing and looking at a crime plan. Mike Chancellor's looking at developing a crime plan for those 4 specific hotspot areas that we're doing. And what does that look like? So that's exciting things that are coming. Our ComStat, the way we've developed our data and the way we're able to look at citywide crime and crime trends. I'm excited about that as well. So there's a lot of really great things that are happening. And it does seem like a lot. And I guess it is a lot for the first year to, it'll be a few months and I'll be talking about my first year here. And to be able to speak to the things that we've done, the things that we've implemented, I think we can all be proud of that.
Now, when we go back to what you had in the 100-day plan and hitting on hotspots and things like that, you're big on evidence-based policing. That might clarify some things when we talk about that. When people ask why APD is spending so much time in a particular area, right? When I was on patrol, people would ask, why are y'all spending so much time on the east side rather than the west side, and vice versa? A lot of people assume that we were targeting a specific group of people and harassing that group of people, right? But with this evidence-based policing, in real simple terms, can you explain it and what that looks like?
So it means looking at data, looking at the science. So much of policing is science. And so when you're able to look at the data to say, this is where crime's occurring, this is the house it's occurring, and this is the street segment. You think of micro street segments to say this 600 feet or this half of a block is responsible for so much crime. When you're able to do that, which we are, and then you start bringing resources to address that area. Who owns this building? Why do people feel comfortable committing crime here? And how do we change that dynamic? That's evidence-based policing. You don't need to come in and take over an entire neighborhood when you know specifically where crime is occurring, and then you start working at that location. It is more, you talk about police legitimacy and people being able to trust us. When community members can see that, we're not going into a community, writing these low-level tickets for your turn signals out, those type of things. That is not how you build trust, but how you build trust in a community, certainly ones that are experiencing and that are more vulnerable. You use that data to come in and speak to, this is why we're here. This is what's going on. And when you start seeing the wins from that, you can talk about the reductions, you see them. And then we need to be better at sharing them with the officers. Look, this is what your efforts have done. The fact that you're over here doing directed patrols. Look what happened. Our calls for service went down here. Crime went down in this area. And you're able to see specifically what you've done in a neighborhood by taking out 1 or 2 specific locations.
As we're moving forward with your 100-day plan and with some of these changes that are being made and being implemented, if I'm just a normal community member in the city of Austin, I know that I'm going to see some changes, right? Can you talk about what we're going to see? What changes are people really going to feel from the Austin Police Department as just an Austinite?
Well, I mean, my hope is now that we've got some more people on patrol, you're going to see quicker responses to calls for service. I'm going to look at the way we are dispatched. That's kind of my next thing. Everything kind of starts becoming these priorities that I have, but the way that we are dispatched, I want to start seeing, supervisors dispatched with these officers on the priority zeros and ones. I think it's important not just to let them be aware of them, but they need to be responding as well. Calls for service, that we're getting there faster, that we're able to take more reports, and then what's the technology look like in the future? One of the things we're looking at is, can we bring somebody in to do auto accidents? There are companies that do that. We've seen New Orleans have great success with overall times it takes to get a report. Most people will never call the police in their lives, and when they do, it's because of an accident or something like that they need the police. And we, in my mind, we owe that to them to come. There needs to be a customer service part of that. And so if we can develop anything using technology that's going to make us better at that, take that burden off the police, I'm all for it. So those are certain things that we're going to be looking at as well.
So it's one thing to propose the solutions that you proposed. It's another to take them into action, right? So now when you met with APD officers and personnel within the department, aside from the staffing shortage, one of the other pressing issues was backfill, right? For those that don't know what backfill is, it's basically using detectives and other specialized personnel from specialized units to fill those patrol shifts that aren't adequately staffed, right? So you've heard those concerns, and in the next several weeks, over 70 plus members of the Austin Police Department will be put back onto patrol, ending that backfill program. Why did that change have to be made?
Well, it was a couple things. One, just listening to the people when I got here, that it was a problem. And the fact that we spent so much overtime with people being outside those roles. So you think about a detective having to spend 10 hours of their week, or, and again, these were 5 times over 90 days that this happened. So, and then to have to come with that 10 hours and then feel like they're either working overtime to catch back up on your caseload or whatever. But it's that, and it is the fact that we need, again, for a city this size, the amount of people we have on patrol just is not adequate. And you see that by the response times, and you see that by the the calls that just aren't being made.
I want to ask you one last question before we wrap things up, because you've done so much. I see you running around all the time. I feel like you never have a break in your schedule. But since you've gone here, it's almost hitting that year mark now. What has been the hardest part of your job so far?
This is probably the hardest job I've ever done. It is, and there's a lot of growth that comes with it. But again, it is learning. It is, again, watching what I say. It is not having a casual conversation and talking about, hey, I want to do that. That's important. And then realizing in their mind, this is happening. It's happening in the next couple of weeks. This is going on. So truly understanding that as chief, everybody listens to what you have to say because it's important to them. It affects them. So just being more considerate with that, I think. Getting out more. I can't wait to get out more with the officers, get to more show-ups, to actually get out and take a few calls for service, do that. That's the stuff I love, so I want to do more of that.
One more question. How transparent are we as a department, maybe compared to other departments that you've seen or people that you've talked to?
Oh, I think Austin's very transparent. I think, too, with us adding more with the officer-involved shootings where we're out quicker, I like that. I think that's part of that whole transparency part. But I do think as a whole, when I look at the way we do records requests, how transparent we are with our, whether it's just through our social media, all of those things, we are very transparent.
Okay. So with some of the feedback that you receive from some community members, they want us to be even more transparent. How more transparent can we be?
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like. And so I guess I'd have to ask them specifically. But there are certain things, that if it's an investigation, if it's something we can't disclose, we cannot disclose it. I mean, that's if we're working something, a case through the courts, that is not something we can share readily. But when we can, we should. And so that's kind of the mentality that we have to have. As soon as we can get in front of something, we need to get in front of something. If there's a bad video going on about APD, we need to address. And I think we've done a good job with that. And sometimes it's not going to be to our benefit. Sometimes we're not going to have that other cut of something that says, no, look at it this way, look at this angle. And when you don't, And you have to say, look, this is terrible and we're going to address it. But that's how you build that community trust, is knowing that, look, we're going to be there to defend it, but we'll also be there to address it when it's something that needs to be addressed.
Alrighty, Chief. Thank you so much for your time, for your leadership. I think it's really encouraging for all of us to see some of these concrete steps that are being taken, and also some real conversations with our police department.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for this. I think this is fantastic start. I don't know, we'll have to have, I don't know, I've got some great ideas for guests for you guys. So
we'd love to have them.
I'm going to send you guys a list. And watch out.
So thanks again for joining us today, Chief. And for our listeners today, thank you for joining in. We really do appreciate your time. For more information about the 100-day plan, you can find that online. For more information about community events with the Austin Police Department, safety tips, news releases, or any other important information that we're putting out there, we encourage you to follow us on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, X as the Austin Police Department. We hope this conversation provides you with the resources that help everybody keep Austin safe.